Hi RVians, welcome to the last episode of this season of RV's Gambit, where we, a group of 44 JC elects, bring you interesting podcasts to spice up your life.
I'm Beng from 22J02.
And I'm Liying from 22J06. For today's episode, we will be talking about various questions related to healthy living. Let us welcome our guests today, Mr. Andy Lim and Mr. Ma.
Hi everyone, I'm VP Andy here. Nice to see everyone today.
Hi, I'm Mark. I'm the JC1 Year Master. Pleasure to be here.
And without further ado, let us get started with the podcast.
Right, so our first question is, what does a healthy lifestyle mean to you? And how do you maintain one even with your busy schedule?
I'll go first. I think for a healthy lifestyle, it really depends on how you define it. But it's a great question because it got me thinking what it means to be a healthy lifestyle for me as well. Two words, I think balance and moderation. Balance in the sense that in part of your life, it's not just only overly focused on one area. It can be focused on your work, but remember you have a family, you have your interests, your passion, and that's where the balance will come in terms of what you have in your life. And moderation. So no one particular domain should, engulf your whole life, all your time. So it's really looking at how do you have a balance in all these areas, and everything is really done in moderation. We can go first, Mark. How do you define a healthy lifestyle?
No, I think I agree with you there, Mr. Lim. You have many things and many parts to your life, and it's about making sure that no one part of it starts to become all-encompassing and crowd out other things. As human beings, we all have certain things that we need to do. We need a family, we need our friends, we need our time to ourselves, and we need our own interests and our own passions and our own hobbies. So it's important that we make sure to carve out time to look after ourselves as we're going through our lives. And yes, there'll be things that pressurize us, there'll be things that put us under pressure. There'll be times that we can't always look after ourselves 100%, but we do want to make sure that we are deliberate in carving out that time, that space to recharge. I think Mrs. Chua earlier in the year talked about this as well when she talked about the different kinds of rests. So knowing about what type of rest you need. Do you need to spend time on your own to mentally recharge? Do you need to spend time with friends? Do you need to spend time doing something that you're interested and passionate about? How do you recharge? So knowing yourself and then carving out that time to make sure that you have that balance in your life.
Yeah, I got to agree with Mark. I think it's really when you come to the question about how do you maintain everything amidst all this in the busy schedule. I think it's important that you are able to keep certain time and ring fence certain time for yourself and sometimes for others. And when you ring fence that time, focus on whoever you are with at that time, or when it's your own personal time, focus on yourself. Really, the most important thing is about the self-care. I always share with my staff is only when you first take care of yourself before you're ready to take care of others. So this will be some of the things that we do to maintain our healthy lifestyle.
Actually, just some question from me, because I think a lot of us have tried setting schedules before, but actually we cannot do it. So any advice on that?
It's very similar to how we plan for a trip sometimes. I plan sometimes overly obsessively. For a trip, we have to wake up and do certain things at a certain point of time. By the end of the day, when things don't go according as planned, really it's about the mentality, the mindset that you should be having. Should things for the day as it progresses doesn't pan out the way you plan it to be, I think you just gotta tell yourself that alright, this is the plan that I have, it's not working out. Now I'm at this stage, what's the next thing I should be doing? And at the end of the day, really is remember the larger objective of why you even have a schedule in the first place. If you are able to somehow meet your objectives at the end of the day, whatever objectives you have, it's not just about studies. You don't have to strictly follow to the schedule, but it's something that guides you. So at least you retire for the night, you are at ease, and when you wake up, you know that you have a plan. But as the day progresses, the mindset and mentality of assuring yourself that things don't go as planned is that's normal. Look at how you can then tweak accordingly adapt and pivot such that you can still achieve your objectives for whatever reason that you plan out the schedule for.
I mean, this is something I also struggle with, keeping to a schedule. And the way I've got around it is I've started planning to not keep to my schedule. Which is, it's one strategy that you can have where I've got a pool of time that I can budget. Where, okay, this time, if I get everything done, maybe it'll be this, but maybe it'll go to something else because I'm expecting it to overrun. But I think, again, just echoing what Mr. Lim said, knowing why you have the schedule is the important part. It may be, like, I know that certain things are going to overrun, that I'm going to take longer, and I plan for that, but I also know why I want to do those things, and I know what I have to sacrifice in order to complete it. So it may be that you want to complete your tutorial, but you will have to stay up late in order to do that. Maybe it's worth it, but you also have to be willing to say, well, maybe it's not. Maybe getting that 8th tutorial question completed is not worth as much as having an extra hour's sleep this evening, especially if you're only on your 5th or 6th hour's sleep. And we'll talk about sleep more later on, I dare say.
Yeah, and I think our next question is actually quite related to this topic. So our next question is, has there been a time when you faced a lot of challenges and how did you overcome them? Yeah, I think maybe a lot of challenges, to contextualize it a little bit more, it would be if you were overwhelmed with a lot of commitments or a lot of responsibilities going on at the same time.
I think definitely there will be periods in our life where we face many different challenges. And I gotta say, the type of challenge that everyone faces is different, and that's normal. And the same challenge can pose very little issues for someone, but the very same challenge can be a huge, insurmountable one for a peer. But every challenge we need to acknowledge is valid, and we need to validate these challenges. But more importantly is then, how do we then respond to these challenges that we face? I think for those who know me for some time, I always use this quote to assure myself. It's about being kind to others and being kind to yourself. Because sometimes these challenges, you do realize it might not be just about you. Sometimes it could be even be about your interaction with peers. It could be pieces of work that involve your peers. And maybe how you perceive or interpret the interactions you have with your peers. And that could also be one of the challenges. But you need to be kind to others as well. They could be facing certain challenges that you might not have known. And just take a deep breath and tell yourself that, probably this person is going through a rough patch, a tough time. Okay, so let's put it aside. We focus on one thing at a time. And another one would be to be kind to yourself. Reason being is that we tend to have very high expectations of ourselves. Alright, we give the same task to different people. Some might find it pressurizing, some doesn't. It sometimes depends on first the ease of the assignment, but also the expectations you set for yourself. Someone is happy with an 8 out of 10. Someone can be extremely stressed when they got a 9.5 out of 10. They will keep wondering where did the 0.5 mark go. And sometimes it could be you being very reflective, thinking about the decisions, the things that went through during the day, and you start to feel anxious or upset that I should be doing this, I should be doing that. And that's where you take a deep breath and exhale and tell yourself, it's time to be kind to yourself as well. And it goes back really to the first question of how do you balance it with a healthy lifestyle. Is all these things. It's about balance and moderation. So over to Mark.
There's something that you talked about in there, and I want to pick up on that thread, and it's the idea of high expectations. This is something that I know a lot of RVians struggle with, because you are high-performing students, and you have always been high-performing students for many of you. But high-performing doesn't mean you're Superman and Superwoman. It doesn't mean that you're infallible and you'll never make a mistake. And knowing that you are human, there's a lot of peace that comes with that. And it frees you to do more. One time I was under a lot of stress was when the first time I was in charge of organising graduation ceremony. It's an event for the school that is quite important because it's the last event many of our JC2s will go through. And I remember the first time I was trying to be the overall in charge of it, I was very, very stressed. But a lot of the reasons I was stressed were because of the expectations I had for myself and how I should be running it. I had expectations that I should be doing everything. I should be the one, but I should be doing, my team didn't need to do anything. And it was not fair to me. It was also not fair to my team because I did need to go and get help from them in the end. So one thing I would encourage you to do is when you are stressed, when there is too much on your plate, don't hesitate to reach out and seek help. My life became a lot better when I was proactively asking people, please help me. Please take this off my plate because at the moment it's just stressing me. And it also helps them because a lot of the time people are waiting and they're looking at you like, it's like watching a spinning top. Is it going to fall? Is it going to fall? And they're stressed out for you. But the minute that you ask them for help, that okay, I'm actually doing something. I feel like I'm at peace now, and I know I've got a hand on the wheel and I'm in a bit more control. So don't hesitate to reach out, to ask for help, to get other people involved and to lessen the burden on yourself. So that would be one very big piece of advice. The other one would be, again, going back to the idea of high expectations, be kind to yourself. And I found one of the things that really gets me down, or used to get me down, is negative self-talk. There's a voice in your head that will always tell you you're not good enough, that will always tell you you're not doing enough, and that will always tell you that you are being lazy and you're not doing your work and why are you like this? And you need to tell that voice to sod off, for want of a better term.
I just want to add on to what Mark has mentioned. I mean, again, another quote, really they talk about, is it the process that is more important or the destination that is more important? To be honest, it's the company that is more important. And sometimes if you just be willing to reach out in RV, I think you will have known by now, there will be someone there who is ready to hold your hand as well. Alright, so yeah, these are some of the things.
So I think the thing about trying to do everything yourself and not trying to rely on is very valid. I think a lot of us have actually had this sort of mindset before. So our next question will be, in your position, having spoken to many RVians, what are some of the other common unhealthy traits they have observed, and what can be done, what can us do to improve on them?
Well, so I think it's a natural progression. I think earlier on, one unhealthy trait, of course, is really about the unnecessary high expectations we put on ourselves. Another one, I think really some of your faces will turn red. It's about the sleep hygiene. What is sleep hygiene? Sleep hygiene basically means the quality of sleep that our RVians are having, the number of hours of sleep that our students are having. I've been speaking, going around, having conversations with many of our RVians. Sometimes I just ask them how many hours they are sleeping. Yeah, so some of them are getting as little as 4 hours. I think that is not enough. That is as good as sometimes my weekend afternoon nap. So you all should try to have at least 6 to 7 hours of sleep at night. And sometimes when I do some morning walks around the classroom blocks before the day has started, I can see some of you even just head slumped onto the table, totally knocked out. And I roughly guess you probably did not get much sleep the previous night as well. So I think really it's important to keep our mind sharp in the morning. And to do that is biological. There's no way to convince yourself that you are running on adrenaline for the rest of the year. The body will send you signals along the way that you are not functioning. For example, your ability to remember things, to understand things, to listen in class. If you know that there's a drop, a dip, probably your body is sending you signals that you need to rest more and sleep more. Alright, so it goes back to Mr. Mark's earlier point again. Is it worth it to maybe just persevere for 1 more hour at 2 a.m. to finish an additional tutorial question? Or is more worth it to have an additional hour of sleep? I would choose the additional hour of sleep. Because I don't think you need 1 hour to tell you that you probably need to get some help on how to understand how to do this question. Alright, so over to Mark.
I think I would add on to that idea of sleep and maybe make it more broad and talk about rest. Recently, the PTA got a speaker, and Dr. Edwin Thum, I think, and he's a sports psychologist. He focuses actually, when he's dealing with Olympic athletes or people going to see games and all that, he focuses on recovery, because we're very good at training. We all understand the need to train, but we don't always understand the need to recover after that training. And it's something that we need to actively think about. He talked about prioritizing recovery, and he said, your body needs rest. You can either choose when your body rests, or you can have your body choose for you when eventually something's going to give. If you train too hard as an athlete, eventually one of your muscles will tear. Same thing as a student. If you burn the midnight oil over and over and over again, eventually you may find yourself falling sick easily, struggling to concentrate in class, falling asleep when you've got on the bus or on the MRT. And these are all signs that your body is telling you need to rest, and I'm choosing now as the time to rest because you're not going to do it for me. So just listening to your body and really respecting your need to have a proper rest and recovery is an important one. Part of the reason why we struggle to do this, particularly nowadays, is our devices. And again, I hate to sound like a boomer as I'm going on about this, but one of the things that really helped me was discovering that I can put my phone into night mode and do not disturb mode. And that's really useful for me because I know after 10 o'clock at night, if someone sends me a message, unless they're urgently calling to get through, it's not going to disturb me, and I'm free to go about my evening routine and slowly get ready to rest. And it takes a lot of that stress and that anxiety of here if I'm what is it? I don't have that anymore, and it's allowed me to have a more peaceful evening. So again, just using there's been a lot more awareness about the dangers of devices, particularly in the last few years. Using some of these tools that the companies have put in to help you manage your device, use them and use them to help you get that quality of rest and that peace that you need, that separation from your device.
And I guess that brings us to the end of the first segment. So thank you, Mr. Mark, and thank you, Mr. Lin. And for the next segment, Beng and I will be answering your questions. So thank you, and we'll catch you at our next segment.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the second segment of this episode. The first question we have for you is a work-life balance realistic and achievable?
I think for this sort of thing, the most important thing to recognize is that your work and your life are not done magically, of course, as some people think. I mean, some people think that the life is always going to be fun and the work is always going to be not fun. And because of that, they are going to strike some sort of balance to maintain their mental health. But I don't think this is true because you're going to be miserable if you're going to be like that. So you should only take out commitments that you enjoy, to the largest extent that you can. And if you enjoy your work, you enjoy your life, then you will be a happy person. So that is the idea of work-life harmony as opposed to just saying having a work-life balance.
Yeah, and I would say that on the concept of balance, it's quite important to remember that your work cannot make up your entire life. So at the end of the day, your life should not be all about your work because there are a lot of other things that are equally worthy of your time. For example, like your relationships, your hobbies, the things that you love, and a work-life balance should be realistic and achievable because I know quite a few people who have been able to strike up some kind of balance that does work for them, but it probably won't be very easy to maintain it if you don't have your things in order. And I think based on my understanding, one thing that you need to do is to make sure that you don't give in to impulse and you actually get your work done on time so that you can plan your leisure time later. And on the other hand, you also need to actively make sure that you aren't overpowered and overcommitted with stuff. And I think that maybe most RVians might suffer with either one of these problems or maybe both of them to varying degrees. So it's important for us to be able to negotiate between both of them and make sure that you can strike up some kind of balance that works for you.
Yeah, I think the important thing is to realize, right, is that when we talk about work-life balance, right, maybe you can say 80% work, 20% life, maybe 20% work, 80% life. That sort of balance is really dependent on what you yourself want to do and what sort of aspirations or values you yourself have. Because I think that if you're a person who really enjoys working, you're a hard-driving, hard-working person who really enjoys your work, then sure, 80% work, 20% life is fine. Because I mean, that's basically the sort of thing I do anyway. Then if you're someone who wants to have a relaxed life, a carefree lifestyle, then maybe 20% work, 80% life is also fine. Because I think that in the end, the most important thing is really taking care of yourself and doing everything that you can to ensure that your work-life balance does exist to an extent. So really, it is possible.
Yeah, I think to me, the concept of a work-life balance would mean being able to complete your work on time, and on top of that, probably have some time left for revision. And also like being able to handle your commitments well, so making sure that you aren't pulling down the people that you work with, and also having the time to do the things that you like and spend time with the people that you care about. So it's not so much of like maintaining like a 50-50 perfect equilibrium all the time, because there are some times that you have to make sacrifices in some parts of your life, but the concept of balance means that you might have to sacrifice in this part for like a certain amount of time, but after that amount of time ends, you need to try and make up for whatever losses that part of your life has gone through. So for example, let's say if you have an exam this week, you might sacrifice on your social life for a while, but after the exam ends, you should probably make an effort to like try and build back on like whatever that you missed out on during the time that you were busy. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think I already talked much about like doing work in advance before in the previous productivity podcast. And so the next idea is kind of a consequence of not having that balance, and it is I keep stress eating and sleeping late because of bedtime procrastination. What should I do?
Yeah, okay. I think what should you do? That one is honestly something that depends on how well you understand your stress levels. So for example, if you're extremely stressed, stress eating and sleeping late isn't so much of a choice, but it's more of like a response. It's an involuntary response. So these are all clearly very detrimental things that you should probably try and stop if you can. But the real focus is probably like whether or not you think you are able to, like what kind of steps you can take in order to lessen the detrimental effects. And honestly, I'm not sure if I'm qualified to answer this question because I do this a lot. So, Beng?
I mean, I've also been doing this, and like I've gained 10 kg of weight in the last 6 months. Yes, but I also think that it's indeed quite a normal response to like having stress. So I think the important thing is really what we have discussed in the last few episodes, which is to find ways to relieve your stress, such as like setting a specific time to scroll your phone instead of doing it late at night, and like, or maybe like coping with your work in a way that's like not eating, then like calling with friends to do your work.
Yeah, and I would say that this question is phrased in a way that, at the very least, like good job on recognizing that this is something that you are doing and that is unhealthy. And I feel like the asker would probably know that this is something that they know they should stop doing. So in response to stress eating, I guess the main thing you should do is probably try and take smaller steps to work towards trying to make it a healthier process. So let's say, for example, you've been stress eating a lot of unhealthy foods like chips or bubble tea. So maybe instead you can try to eat healthier foods instead. So personally, there was a period of time last year I kept eating a lot of chips, and I recognized that that was not very healthy. So what I did instead was I tried to switch over to mixed nuts because first they are cheaper, and second, like I feel like when you eat healthier foods, it's a lot easier to get full. So it's not really so much of like completely stopping the stress eating at once, but it's more of like working towards making it a healthier thing so that it becomes something that's easier for you to handle. And in response to sleeping late or revenge bedtime procrastination, one thing that you can try to do is to set a timer on your social media. But I know that like sometimes you will be very tempted to either ignore it or try and like remove the limits. So it's important to make sure that whatever goal you set for yourself is one that is achievable. So for example, if you know that there's no way that you will stop scrolling like TikTok or Instagram after 10 minutes, then maybe like extend it to 30 minutes and tell yourself that like after that, no matter what, you need sleep.
Yeah, so I think that another thing that's important is to like really recognize the root cause of the issue, like the most important factor that's making you stress. So it's like the underlying cause, right? Like if you're stressed about an event, right, what you're stressed about is actually what if the event goes wrong? Why is someone blaming you for that, right? And I feel that once you address that root cause of the stress, you won't feel that urge to like binge eat or like have that scrolling of social media to relieve your stress anymore. So that's also something that's very important.
Yeah. And related to having too much stress in your lifestyle, we have our next question, which is, I would like to try changing my lifestyle, but it often feels like it's too big of a task to achieve and I end up giving up easily. How can I overcome this?
So I think the most important thing, again, yes, and that's sort of person, but recognize the root cause, please, which is like the most important factor that leads to like your lifestyle being unhealthy. So personally, what I realized was that my expectations of myself are unrealistic and they're way too high. And then because of that, I take on work that other people are supposed to do. I tend to take up too many compliments, and because of that, I end up being very stressed. So the important thing after that is to make small steps to change it, such as like when I stop taking up like new commitments, maybe, and like when I try to give more work to others and rely on others more. So it's really what like we have said throughout this series of podcasts and like what the teachers have said. You need to recognize like what's leading you to be unhealthy, put that as your priority, and like make small steps to change it.
And I think like I remember in our productivity podcast, Mr. Xia said, if a task feels like it's too big or too daunting to handle, you can try to break it up into smaller tasks so that it seems less scary and like more achievable. So I understand like the concept of changing your life completely is obviously a scary one. But maybe if you want to get started, you should probably try and choose like a specific part of your life that you would like to improve on. Like for example, if you would like to improve your studies, so you should probably come up with a schedule that places your studies at its focus. So don't be too ambitious, don't try to like change your whole life at once. So if you are capable of changing your whole life at once, that's great for you. But for those of us who aren't able to do that, it's best to like prioritize what are your goals and then work towards that accordingly.
Yeah, I think it's also important, like as what the teachers have said, is to like really have other people that are supporting you on the journey so that you know you're not alone. And everyone has their own struggles and wants to hide it as well. I mean, I think everyone feels like everyone else around them is so awesome. They're doing so many things and they're coping a bit so well, but that is not true at all. I mean, everyone has their own struggles. It's just that we as people, or maybe as RVians, we are not very open to be willing to do it. So I think that in a sense, opening up isn't a selfish act. It's not a selfish act at all, because you can get other people to open up to you if you open up to them. And in the end, it creates mutual assistance, right?
Yeah, and also I think another very important thing to take note of would be that don't try too hard to compare yourself to the people around you. And if you want to do things, you should don't feel bad about doing it at your own pace, and don't let the people around you or the things that you see online stress you out. So, for example, there was this trend on TikTok a while ago, like the that girl trend. So basically, there's a pressure to lead an Instagram-worthy and an aesthetically productive life. But there is no like one correct lifestyle that fits everyone, and a healthy lifestyle means different things to different people because everyone has different needs. So the most important part is to do what fits you best and do it at your own pace, and don't feel like there's like a certain schedule or certain goal that you must achieve if that's not something that you really have in mind for yourself.
Yeah, like what the teacher said, if you want to set a schedule or a goal for yourself, the most important thing is to realize that you need to realize why you're making the schedule in the first place. And you shouldn't blame yourself too much if you can't meet the schedule, because sometimes, I mean, I always do meet my schedule and I still get the things done. So it's not to say that you shouldn't make a schedule or not make a plan for yourself, but you should try to understand why you're doing it. And at the same time, right, I mean, I also feel quite sad like when I go onto social media and then I see my friends going out with like other people and I'm like, bro, why they like this, yeah? I like no energy at home, I want to like do my work, yeah. But then I realized that this are of the own choices I make, and I'm like enjoying what I'm doing right now, so I don't think it's wrong. Then, so this really leads us to our next question, and well, the last question that we'll be answering for this season. It'll be the same question that we asked the teachers. What does a healthy lifestyle mean to you?
I think, okay, one thing that we've been emphasizing a lot through this entire podcast is a work-life balance. So, like what I said just now, means completing your work, being able to revise, and just handling everything in your life like reasonably well. But I think the most important part is to be happy with the life that you're leading. So if you're leading a life that, let's say, it looks perfect and productive on the surface, but actually it's something that you don't really like and it's not something that you agree with, that's definitely a sign that you should be changing something to fit your own wants and your own needs.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you gotta manage your expectations of yourself too. I mean, recently, I was running quite high, and then after that, I actually got like the result that SSCF I got participation. That was like some science fair. And then I also like actually didn't get elected into like the JC Student Council also, and I was like in a really really bad place. I wanted to like cry myself to sleep, but then I realized that like, I mean, everyone already has a lot of accomplishments. Everyone already has their own capabilities. So try not to put yourself down the peg all the time. You need to realize that everyone has their strengths and weaknesses and everyone is different. So I think it's really not right to compare yourself. So when you have like thinking about like what a healthy lifestyle is, it should be what it only means to me and not what it like others think of me.
Yeah. And also another thing to consider would probably be that it needs to be something that you can sustain for a long period of time. So if it's a lifestyle that asks too much from you and it's something that's too stressful you to keep up with, there is probably something wrong with that. And a lot of people spend a very long time trying to figure out what works best for them, and that is fine because you can take any amount of time as long as it feels like the end goal is something that you feel like it is really something that you can work with for a long period of time. And there is no like one or like singular healthy lifestyle that works for everyone. And honestly, even if you manage to find like some kind of routine that works for yourself, it probably won't stay constant for very long either, because as you change as a person, so will your needs and so will your lifestyle.
Yeah, you just gotta ask yourself like, how are you feeling today? Like, do you feel good? Do you feel better than you were in the past, or do you feel worse? And you gotta find out why there's these changes in what you're feeling. And after that, you need to realize that there are really some common things. Like, even though everyone is different, there are some things that we all need. We need sleep, we need friends, right? We need energy. And these things are what I think you should pay attention to.
Yeah, and I guess that brings us to the end of RV's Gambit. So we hope you found our opinions interesting, and again, since we'll be posting this as a YouTube video, do leave comments on what you think.
Yeah, we'll also be uploading this podcast on Spotify for those of you who prefer that method. So do keep a lookout for that. So once and for all, thank you for listening.